Alright, I know this is gonna disappoint a ton of you guys, but I'm almost certain that the new larger iMac coming later this year is still gonna have a chin. And I'm gonna explain why in this video using some common sense as well as some hints and tidbits that I've recently figured out, so let's get right into it. Now before we begin, I wanna give you guys some good news and mention that in my opinion, there's a 50-50 chance that the larger iMac actually comes with black bezels. But I'm gonna get into that in just a minute, but for now, let's talk about the chin. The first question we have to answer is why Apple gave the new 24-inch iMac the chin in the first place. A lot of people are gonna say that the only reason they kept it was so they could fit the entire computer behind the chin and keep it as thin as possible. Yes, that is totally true, but in my personal opinion, that wasn't the number one reason. I believe that Apple's number one requirement for the iMac redesign was quite literally to keep the chin, and here's why. The 24-inch iMac is basically a reincarnation of the classic iMac G3. And we know that because it had white bezels, a chin, and essentially the same color options on everything from the Mac itself to the mouse and the keyboard. And if you think about it, every single iMac that featured the built into the display concept, starting with the iMac G5 in 2004, came with the chin, and then the 2007 iMac, which came with the chin, and then the 2012 iMac, which came with a chin. And the main reason why they did that is because that chin has always been totally unique to Apple, and it's become an iconic design aspect of the iMac, making it instantly recognizable compared to every other all-in-one PC out there. And that's why the 24-inch iMac still has the chin. It's iconic, and believe it or not, it's the chin that sells it for Apple. Want to know how I know that? Well, take a look at all of these all-in-one PCs. They basically all have at least some sort of a chin with branding on it, because they want it to look like the classic iMac. But I did find a couple of them without a chin, so take a guess just by looking at it which brand this one is from. If you guessed HP, you're wrong. It's from Lenovo. And how about this one? Who made this all-in-one? If you guessed Dell, you're wrong. It's HP. And what about this one? Yeah, you get the point. And that's the main reason why it makes sense for Apple to keep the chin for the larger iMac as well. But don't worry, because the chin is actually gonna look quite a lot slimmer than the one on the 24-inch iMac, and let me prove it to you. Believe it or not, but there were actually 3 sizes of the Core 2 Duo iMac with white bezels: a 17-inch, a 20-inch, and a 24-inch. And if you look closely, the chin is exactly the same thickness on each model, looking quite a bit slimmer on the largest 24-inch. And then on the 2007 aluminum bezel models, the chin was also the same thickness. And the same thing for the slimmer iMac design that everybody has right now. Both the 21.5-inch and 27-inch iMacs have the same exact chin thickness. So here's the point that I'm trying to make. The chin on the larger iMac is actually gonna look pretty slim because it's gonna be the same exact thickness as the one on the 24-inch, but the display will be scaled up to as much as 30 inches, so the chin will look pretty slim, like in this image created by a Mac Rumors forum user. And since I believe that it's gonna have a chin, it's extremely unlikely that it'll get a large 32-inch display, because it'll simply be too big, being even bigger than the size of the Pro Display XDR. Now, since Apple is gonna scale the iMac up to basically look like a larger version of the 24-inch iMac, they can get away with making the body itself thicker while maintaining the same balanced ratio in terms of the dimensions. For example, a 30-inch display is 25% larger than a 24-inch display, so they can actually make the body up to 25% thicker. So instead of being 11.5 millimeters thin like on the 24-inch, they can actually make the larger iMac a couple of millimeters thicker without impacting the dimensions too much. And if you really think about it, the current 27-inch iMac is already 15% thicker than the 21.5-inch. So I expect them to do the exact same thing on the larger iMac, especially if it's getting a 30-inch display. What this essentially means is that Apple will actually be able to fit in a more powerful M1X chip along with all of the other components behind the chin, just like they're already doing with the 24-inch. And if you think about it, the chin on the larger iMac is also going to be much longer, allowing for a longer logic board with more space for other cooling components and wherever else they need. So yeah, I'm actually pretty confident that Apple will still be able to fit the entire computer in the chin of the larger iMac, even with more performance. And if that wasn't enough for you, here are a few more pieces of evidence pointing to the larger iMac getting a chin. The new 24-inch iMac has a variety of different colors, but one of them is missing: Apple's signature space gray. The fact that Apple left that color option out basically means that they're planning to introduce it in a larger iMac. And if that iMac did not have a chin and it was all display in black bezels, there wouldn't really be that big of a point to the space gray color option, since you could only really see it from the side or from the back. So it makes sense to keep the chin around for that space gray color. But as far as the other color options, I honestly don't know if all of them will make it, or if Apple is gonna try to keep the larger iMac more subtle with more neutral colors. But I actually think that there's a chance that Apple could be keeping the bezels white. If you think about it, Apple's larger iMacs have always looked fundamentally identical to the smaller models, so giving it black bezels would be a bit weird unless they decide to call it the iMac Pro, and then that changes everything. I initially thought that that's what Apple is gonna do, but after the release of the 24-inch iMac, that definitely changed my perspective a little bit, and I actually think that there's a chance that Apple could be releasing 2 more iMac models, but that's another topic for another video. So if you're interested in seeing that video, definitely subscribe down below so you don't miss out. Now, as far as the specs of this new iMac, I think the display resolution will be somewhere between 5.2 and 5.5K, depending on if it's getting a 28 or 30-inch display. And I don't think that it's gonna be getting mini LED tech, it's gonna be sticking to the standard LCD. And as for the chipset, the absolute simplest way for Apple to manufacture this larger iMac is to give every model the M1X chip, just like they did with the M1 on the 24-inch iMac. But there's also a small chance that it could have a more expensive M1Z upgrade option, but I'm not really sure about this just yet. Now, we also heard rumors of Apple working on a dedicated graphics chip for a larger iMac coming in the second half of this year, so that will likely be an upgrade option that you'll have to pay extra for if it comes. It'll definitely come with up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, or maybe even 64, but I'm not really sure about that. And will probably have up to 8 terabytes of SSD storage, just like on the current 27-inch iMac. So there you guys go. That's pretty much all of my thoughts on the new larger iMac coming later this year. And if you totally disagree with my point of view, go ahead and comment your thoughts down below. But if you enjoyed this video, click that circle above to subscribe for more videos like this one. Definitely check out one of those 2 right there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.